A Facebook campaign group called We Are the 45%, in reference to the proportion of people who voted in favour of Scotland leaving the Union, has been set up by those determined to keep the dream of independence alive. Well, we're joined down the line from Glasgow by one such person, the former MSP, Tommy Sheridan. Welcome back to the Daily Politics, Mr. Sheridan.
Good afternoon, Joe.
As you know, 55% of Scots voted to stay part of the Union. Do you accept the majority result?
Of course you've got to accept that. It's a democratic election. It was interfered with, unfortunately, by a lot of big businesses who tried to bully and intimidate people and tried to frighten them. Obviously, the BBC played its part. But 55% people voted no, 45% people voted yes. The last-minute intervention that should have broken all conventions and rules, but again, the BBC and others never really pointed that out, was a promise in the back of a fag packet that Scotland was going to get all these new powers. The point is, we were told it was going to happen on the 19th of September. I think it's the 24th today, and we're still to see them.
Right, we're going to come on to the promise that was made by all the parties, as you put it. To come back to the businesses, and you include the BBC in terms of scaring and intimidating people. Are businesses not entitled to have an opinion and have their say?
I think everyone's entitled to have an opinion and have their say.
You didn't like what they said.
But they're not entitled to threaten people that they'll lose their jobs if they vote yes, which is what businesses did, Joe. And that's a disgrace. And you guys in the media should have done more to point that out. This was a democratic and apparently free election. You gave, for instance, coverage to the Deutsche Bank, who said that if we voted yes, we were going to bring in a new Great Depression. A lot of nonsense. But you guys gave it coverage. I think we have to accept that the coverage of the referendum did not cover the BBC in glory. I hope you'll accept that. I'm not having a go at you personally, but the BBC as an institution backed up Britain. That's what they did.
You seem to be and laying the blame for the fact that you didn't win that. Let's come to the issue then of independence. When do you think it'll be revisited, the issue?
Well, I hope we'll have another referendum in 2020, Joe. I hope that we will have next May a massive majority for the pro-independence parties at the general election. I think one of the clear outcomes of this referendum is not only are the blue Tories finished in Scotland, but the red Tories are finished in Scotland. Labour could have celebrated and hugged with all of their Tory friends last Friday, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. They should go and look that up. They may have won this particular battle, but they have lost the war. They've lost Glasgow, they've lost Dundee, they've lost Western Barton, they've lost traditional Labour areas who will never vote Labour again.
Right, well, you say they'll never vote Labour again. You're absolutely right, of course. Those areas, those Labour heartlands were lost in that independence referendum. Could you just stay with us, Tommy Sheridan? Phil Collins, do you think he's right, though, that there could be, and in his mind should be, another independence referendum in 2020, and that Labour has lost those heartlands like Dundee, like Glasgow, forever?
No, I don't think they've lost them forever, but I do think Tommy's right that there's a severe threat to Labour in Scotland. I think that is one of the outcomes of the referendum campaign. I think Labour people are very concerned about that. Whether there'll be another referendum that quickly, I doubt. I suspect the argument for independence will get weaker as Scotland gets older and the oil supplies run down, but it's perfectly reasonable to campaign for another referendum. However, to patronise everybody as if the Scottish people are dupes who simply see what is on the telly and read what is in the paper and do as they're told, I think he's really patronising.
Right, and everybody did say, Tommy Sheridan, that it was amazing to see so many people engaged in the debate on both sides. When it comes to the negotiations with the UK parties over reform, do you have any trust that reform will be delivered?
I think it's absolutely fabulous to see the level of engagement, Joe. We've got a big rally in George Square on the 12th of August. It's been renamed Freedom Square, and people will be going along there from the 45 movement, and we will be appealing to those who maybe weren't duped, because I don't say 55% of people were duped. Only 6% had to be duped to win it for the British establishment. That's all that had to be done. What I do say is people were intimidated, they were lied to, they were bullied.
There were cases of intimidation and lying and bullying on both sides, as you well know, and I don't want to go into a whole rerun of what happened.
Perhaps you should, but you guys certainly gave a lot of coverage to an egg, but you never gave a lot of coverage to the bosses threatening to sack their workers.
Let's get to the reform. You haven't answered the question. Do you have no trust then in reform being delivered? Because there are so many people saying, actually, in the end, Scotland could have its cake and eat it.
Listen, Joe, what the people of Scotland, what the 1.6 million people who voted for independence last week want is they want a country that doesn't cut essential services, that doesn't slash welfare spending, doesn't spend money on nuclear weapons. But the point is what we are going to get, regardless of who wins the Westminster election, regardless whether it's the blue Tories or the red Tories, we are going to get another package of cuts. And I hope the SNP aren't going to implement them. We need a fight back.
Well, and the point is, Phil Collins, that actually there are new powers on the way. Yes, agreement has to be thrashed out. It may well be Nicola Sturgeon that is doing that on behalf of the SNP. But new powers will come to Scotland and they'll be able to make choices over how they raise income tax, for example, to pay for things like the NHS.
Absolutely. The new powers will probably be very extensive. They'll absolutely be delivered because they're bound to be, because the Westminster parties would be ridiculous not to redeem the promise that was made. So it has to happen. And there will be extensive new powers. And if they go as far as to give them full control over income tax, then the Scottish Government can choose to disperse that money however it likes.
Are you convinced, Tommy Sheridan?
Well, imagine the shock that everyone will feel. Politicians break their promises. Wow, that'll be a front pager, eh? Come on, listen, it was a pile of nonsense we were offered last week. What we want is real power. We want freedom. And you're asking, where does the independence movement go from here? That's simple. To independence. It's maybe a wee detour, but we're still on the path to freedom.
All right, Tommy Sheridan, thank you very much.